Have you ever considered moving to Oregon? 15 years ago, about 63% of you would have said yes. These days, only about 31% would. Oregon is a very complicated state with a truckload of problems. Most of those problems are bad, just not as bad as outsiders think. Today we're looking at things you should know before you move to Oregon. We're not looking at the things that every other channel has talked about over and over. We all know about the homeless, the rain, and the protests. No need to go over those. We're talking about the things most people don't consider when they're researching Oregon. Let's take a look. Number 10, the entire state isn't keeping it weird. Yes, most people think the entire state of Oregon is just like Portland. That couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, the entire city of Portland isn't keeping it weird. As a matter of fact, I think the weird factor in Portland kind of peaked around 2014. I mean, we had all the hipsters living here, and it was kind of a really cool scene. The homeless were here, but they hadn't taken over the entire city. There was tons of music venues and great music going on around here, a lot of art exhibits, and a lot of truly weird people, but not weird in a bad way. These days, our weirdness comes from people living on the streets that do things like talk to stop signs for 20 minutes, have fist fights with trash cans. That's the weirdness going on now. Most of the cool, artistic, young weirdness left. I always hope it'll get back to that. I mean, I live outside of Portland. I live in the Portland metro area. I like have this dream of it getting weird like it was back in 2015, 14, somewhere around there. But I think every year that we keep getting more expensive and worse at the same time, that dream is starting to fade. Then you look at the rest of the state. You've got the eastern side of this state. Even the southern part of this state is nothing like the weirdness in Portland. Never has been. As a matter of fact, most of eastern Oregon is very conservative Republican. Completely different from what's going on in Portland. Southern Oregon has a lot more rednecks than most of the state, and they're definitely not like Portland weird. I mean, as weird as they get is they might have mullets still. You know, honestly, if I was like an employer and a guy came in with a mullet, I don't think I'd be able to hire him because I knew eventually I would just have to say something weird about the mullet. Number 9, your dream coastal house may come with an evacuation plan. People obsess over ocean views and forget to look at the tsunami evacuation maps. Oregon's official hazard planning includes tsunamis, coastal erosion, and landslides. And that's, alongside the more familiar hazards like volcano eruptions and forest fires. Tsunamis are a big deal here. We've had some hit that have done some serious damage. Now, they have one about every year. Some of them are barely noticeable, but we had some big ones in 2004 and 2011. 2011 was that one that really affected Japan. The one in 2011 reached 7.9 feet or 2.4 meters. And it caused about $10 million worth of damage to docks, harbors, and a few homes. In 1964, Oregon had a really bad tsunami hit. It happened on March 27, 1964, when they had a megathrust earthquake, sometimes called the Good Friday earthquake. And that's the one that shook Anchorage, Alaska to its core. It was about 9.2. Tremors after that lasted for like 4 minutes. Well, that sent a lot of water down the Pacific coast. People that were in boats on the ocean off of Oregon's coast said that the wall of water was 10 feet. By the time it hit land at Cannon Beach, it was over 30 feet high. And this kept working its way down the coast. It actually hit Crescent City, California really bad. Tsunamis can be dangerous, and sometimes they take people out to the ocean with them, and they're never seen again. There was a boat that was taken from one of the harbors in the 2011 one from Japan, and it was like 8 years later, they found it floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. That's how big the Pacific Ocean is. Ships and planes all the time going across it, and this thing's floating around out there for 8 years or something. So yeah, if you want to buy a coastal house on Oregon's beautiful coast, make sure you check the tsunami maps. Number 8, half the state wants to leave and they want to take their land with them. Oregon has this weird problem going on. It's called the Greater Idaho Movement. Now, like we talked about earlier, the east side of Oregon is nothing like the west side of Oregon. You have a very liberal mindset on the west side and a very conservative mindset on the east side. This has sort of led to a problem over the years that the people on the east side don't feel like they have any representation in the state government. And they have no say because they don't have a bunch of people out there. That is mostly farmland. They've got a few towns that have a couple thousand people in it, but not enough people to move the needle politically. So since this has been going on for such a long time, they feel like they want some representation. They figure if they split the state in half and just join Idaho, where it's more conservative, more Republican, they'll have, more of what they're looking for. Now here's the problem. It's never going to happen. Sure, the counties out there have had some votes and they say they want to explore it or they want to do it, and they've talked to people in Idaho, and Idaho, their state representatives said, okay, well, we'll talk to them. But what they always fail to bring up is that if they were to split Oregon in half, first of all, this would have to go through Congress. Then it would have to move to the Senate, where they would need at least 65 votes. Just for it to go to the president's desk, where the president would yay or nay the whole thing. He could kibosh the whole thing, and they would have to go back and try and override him. It would never happen. Those hurdles are next to impossible already. Then you have the financial end of it. You would have to convince the people of Idaho to vote for this, and they're also voting for their taxes to go through the roof for the foreseeable future, because they've got to pay for that land that belongs to the Oregon people. The state of Oregon has built schools, roads, dams, government buildings. Even though those people want to leave and take their land with them, they don't own those things. That belongs to the Oregon that's staying behind. So I think once Idaho realized how expensive it would be, the people of Idaho would just vote it down. Not many people want to vote for a generational tax hike, that's all there is to it. So they can have their meetings and they can have all their votes they want and they could say they're going to leave. But you know what? I used to tell my parents I was running away when I was 6. It felt good to think about it when I was mad, but in reality, I wasn't going anywhere. If the people of Eastern Oregon want some representation, convince the people of Eugene and maybe Salem to start voting conservative, or at least Republican. Then let's say it did happen. What happens in 20 years, 30 years, all of a sudden Idaho is leaning a little liberal? I mean, Texas right now is starting to look like within the next 10 years, it could be a more Democrat state than Republican. Let's say by then, Oregon is more conservative, more Republican. Are they going to want to come back then? No, it's just never going to happen. I think in the end, the people out there are disgruntled, and this gives them something to think about, something to feel good about, like they're making progress. But in reality, they need to make progress and get more representation out there, or at least representation that shares their views. Number 7. We have a lot of strip clubs. Portland has more strip clubs per capita than any other city in the United States. That's more than Las Vegas. That's more than any other city. Tampa is the second closest. But it's not just in Portland. It's everywhere. There are small towns in Oregon that have their own strip clubs. There's a rural town not too far from where I live called Jervis, with a population of about 2,500 people that is surrounded by farmland. They've got a strip club. I live in a decent neighborhood, and if I got my car and drove for 5 minutes, I could see 2 strip clubs. They're everywhere. So why does Oregon have so many strip clubs? Well, they got constitutional protection in the state of Oregon. Oregon's unique entertainment culture is largely rooted in the 1987 Oregon Supreme Court ruling, which determined that expression, including what some might call obscenity, is heavily protected under Article 1, Section 8 of the Oregon Constitution. Drinking alcohol and nudity are protected by free speech laws in Oregon. And this isn't new to the state. Mary's Club, which is in Portland, opened in 1930. It's still running today. I've driven by that one downtown. I've never been in that one. But I grew up in California where, believe it or not, we didn't have a lot of strip clubs. There was a few, and you go there as a rite of passage thing when you turn 21 or 18 or something like that, but maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. And then I learned something here in Oregon that it's not as big a deal as other places make it. People will go after work and have happy hour at a strip club. That's one of the things that I associated with Keep Portland Weird, because that was a little weird to me when I, first moved here. So if strip clubs is not your thing, don't go to them, or if it bothers you that much, just keep that in mind before you move to Oregon. We got a lot of strip clubs and a lot of weird laws that kind of let you do what you want with your body. Number 6, the outdoor lifestyle can be strangely competitive. You moved to Oregon because you enjoy hiking. Wonderful. Your neighbor just completed a 22-mile trail run. Before breakfast, your other neighbor kayaks to work, and somebody at a brewery is explaining why your hiking boots are technically wrong. Oregon can turn recreation into an elective major, or at least a keeping up with the Joneses type thing. Yeah, that's sort of this thing in Oregon that I noticed. It's like, you need to run this trail. It's amazing. Da 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 da. Get yourself a good pair of Gore-Tex running shoes and you just need to do this one. I'm like, I don't run on trails. I might go for a hike. I'm not running on a trail. And then they look at you like you just explained all your shortcomings to them. They're like, you're missing the best part of Oregon. People will talk about your shoes, especially your hiking shoes, in normal conversations in Oregon. Especially in the Portland metro area. Oh my God, people are crazy. And then they all act like going to the Columbia employee store is like finding the Holy Grail. That and REI. Oh my God, these people go crazy for both those places. It's just a little weird, so prepare yourself if you move here, because someone will try and get you to go hiking. Someone will try and get you to go paddleboarding. Someone will always try and give you passes to go to the Columbia employee store. It's weird. I noticed this right away. Number 5, shit grows in Oregon. Yes, that's a saying here. Shit grows in Oregon. I come from a state, California, where if you want your lawn to die, so let's say you could put a new lawn in, you just don't water it for 3-4 months. You can't do that in Oregon. I've tried to kill my grass 3 different times and finally I've given up. I want to replace it. Eventually I'm gonna just have to do the work and tear it up with a rototiller or something. But the vegetation grows with the enthusiasm usually reserved for competitive sport. Western Oregon homeowners can spend an abnormal amount of time trimming shrubs, clearing ivy, controlling moss, pruning trees, and reclaiming fence lines. Lush is real estate agent language for bring tools. Now, here's another thing, the moss. The moss will attempt to take over your house. Roofs, decks, walkways, retaining walls, and shaded concrete can become moss habitats. People arriving from, let's say, drier states, they often find out that exterior home maintenance operates on an entirely different schedule. Once you get past the moss, you got this other thing. Blackberries. They're not as charming as they sound. Himalayan blackberries can turn a neglected Oregon property into a thorny green fortification. You don't really remove blackberry bushes. You enter into a multi-year diplomatic conflict with them. I have some going on right now. I let them go too long, and me and my son both go out there and spend a little time trying to get rid of them. But you know, it's just a pain. The blackberries are nice. I enjoy them. They come in about the same time as my cherry tree does, which is massive. And I eat the blackberries. The downside is it also brings in all the little creatures from the pond area. I have a wooded area behind my house. All the little creatures come in and start eating those all the time. So that creates another problem. If you move to Oregon, definitely stay on top of your moss and your blackberries. Number 4, Oregon has invisible lines around every city. Every Oregon city has an urban growth boundary, or UGB, designed to separate urban development from farm and forest lands. Cross that line and development possibilities can change dramatically. 2 properties sitting a few miles apart can effectively exist with 2 entirely different sets of real estate rules. My house sits about 3/4 of a mile from the urban boundary. So you've got suburbs and all these, nice homes around here. And then you go across 209th in Aloha, Oregon, out the west side, and you could see a drastic difference. They expanded it a little bit in recent years, but only by like a mile or less than a mile, maybe half a mile. I had never heard of that until I moved to Oregon, and it's a big deal here. Number 3, bottle drop culture is part of daily life. Oregon's bottle deposit, the recycle system, is unusually visible here. Grocery store return areas, bottle drop bags, redemption centers, and people collecting cans are woven into normal life in a way that surprises most newcomers. It's not necessarily bad, but it is distinctly Oregon and definitely something people notice after moving here. You'll go to a grocery store, there'll be the front of the grocery store, then you see a line out the side of a grocery store. That's people waiting to turn in their cans at a little area they have inside the grocery store that has a side door. They go in there and they just do cans. And they always have an attendant that's working the can place. Now, it's not just the homeless people either. It's people that are down on their luck. Maybe they got laid off or something like that. They collect cans. I don't know how legal it is, but I put a recycling bin outside my house all the time, and you just see these people drive up and they look for bags of cans. It's gotten to the point where most people these days will leave the bag outside of their recycle thing with just all the cans, and citizens drive up, grab it, and they go to the can drop, which I mean is fine. It's going the same place. It's might as well give a person in your community a little money. That's kind of how it is. You're giving them a couple bucks because you were just going to kind of throw the cans away in your recycle, which you get nothing for, which you actually pay to have them remove. So these people just come by and collect the cans, and I'm fine with that. But bottle drop culture is a weird thing, especially in my experience in Portland. But yeah, it's definitely how a lot of these homeless people survive. The state has actually put in like whole businesses for the cans, but a lot of communities get pissed off because it brings a whole bunch of homeless people into their neighborhoods. And then that brings other problems. Now these people are trying to camp out as close as they can to the bottle drop place. And, of course, sometimes that's on the sidewalk in front of a $750,000 home or a business. Number 2, we don't go to church. Yes, if this is something that you're into and you want to see your community members at church, we have churches and people do go to churches, but it is nothing like the Midwest, the South, or just about any other place in the country. The state of Oregon has the 5th lowest church attendance in the country, and Portland is the 3rd lowest city. The rate of church goers in Portland is actually lower than Las Vegas. Las Vegas! More people go to church in Las Vegas than in Portland, Oregon. Oddly enough, who's really close to not going to church as much? What other city? Tampa. Tampa is also second to Portland in strippers. I wonder if there's a connection. I do know some guys that basically worship strippers, but I don't know if they're replacing, the church with it. Yeah, so that might be something that bothers a lot of people. A lot of people do grow up around the church, and they're used to everyone going to church. I don't think this is going to be a nail in the coffin for anyone that's on the fence about moving to Oregon, but it is something you should know about. Don't expect the normal, what church do you go to conversations in Oregon. It's just not going to happen. Maybe in some small town on the eastern side, but a lot of people, I've never had a religious conversation with anyone in this state as long as I've lived here. I've been here 15, almost 16 years. I've had several people try and get me to come to their church when I lived in Southern California. Even when I lived in Monterey, California, I had several people try and get me to go to their church. I've never heard a peep about that since I've lived in Oregon. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's up to you. All right, before we get to number 1, let me know in the comments section. Would you move to Oregon? Is there anything on this list that would have, turned you off of moving to it? Let me know in the comments section. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Oregon has a sleeping monster about 70 miles offshore. Everybody associates earthquakes with California, but Oregon sits beside the Cascadia Subduction Zone, a fault capable of producing a magnitude 9+ earthquake. The last massive rupture happened in the 1700s and created a tsunami powerful enough to cross the Pacific and reach Japan. On the Oregon coast, another major rupture could give some communities only minutes to get to high ground, and inland bridges, utilities, and transportation routes could take a serious hit. It's not something you think about every morning, but if you're moving to Oregon, it's definitely something you should know exists, and eventually someone's going to bring it up to you. I've heard so many people say, why would you move here with the Cascadia Subduction Zone? Because I lived in California my whole life and we get earthquakes all the time. No, this one's going to be huge. Maybe, but who knows? You can't think about the things that might happen if you can't control them. Sure, I guess you could control them by moving to Utah, but they've got their own problems. But if this thing ever does go off, it's going to tear through a good portion of Oregon. I mean, it's going to wipe out the coast and possibly run a nice tidal wave down the Columbia River to Portland. I don't know if that'll happen, but some people think that the water could get so high that the water will make it to Portland. Who knows? Not something I worry about, but it's something you should know about before you move to Oregon. Have you ever heard about the Cascadia Subduction Zone? Let me know in the comments section. What are your thoughts on it? Especially, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to make a video about this whole thing. Let me know in the comments section what you know about it and what you think. All right, if you like that video, I know you're gonna love this one right here. It's about Texas. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.